The luxury deep space liner Prism of Serenity hummed with the quiet arrogance of superior engineering, gliding effortlessly through the secure starlight of the core systems. On board were the galaxy's most delicate, high society elite, from the fragile crystalline avians who spent their days reflecting ambient light in the solariums, to the translucent, liquid-based glooms who floated in climate-controlled anti-gravity pods. The ship was a floating paradise of silk banners, harmonic wind chimes, and automated servers that catered to the exact atmospheric needs of 73 distinct species. But the peace shattered when the primary warp drive suffered a catastrophic, unresolvable containment failure. Alarms wailed in screeching frequencies that made the passengers' fragile carapaces ache and their outer membranes ripple with panic. With a violent shudder that tore through the elegant artificial gravity matrices, the massive vessel dropped out of hyperspace, tumbling blindly into completely uncharted, dark territory. Sector 7G. The decorative fountains overflowed, the holographic art installations flickered into static, and a heavy, terrifying silence fell over the grand atrium as the emergency backup lights flickered on, painting the luxurious corridors in an ominous, dim amber hue. Inside the bridge, Captain Vale frantically ran diagnostics, his 4 primary mandibles twitching with an absolute dread he hadn't felt since his early academy days. The navigation computer flashed an aggressive, pulsing crimson warning across the primary viewports, confirming their worst nightmare. Sector 7G was a forbidden zone, explicitly marked on all galactic star charts with jagged warning runes as a Level 10 Death World matrix. At the center of this volatile sector sat a harsh, yellow dwarf star, orbited by a chaotic, tectonic rock the locals called Earth. According to the oldest, highly classified data files in the Galactic Codex, the dominant species, humans, were hyper-aggressive, pack-bonded predators capable of surviving extreme kinetic trauma, crushing atmospheric pressure, and immense toxicity. They were a species born from a world of apex predators, tectonic shifts, and constant climate warfare. Vale's hands shook as he looked at the sensor readouts. Their own life support systems were steadily depleting, their fuel was leaking into the void, and they were floating right in the backyard of the most terrifying evolutionary anomalies in the known universe, entirely unable to call for a galactic rescue team. As the Prism of Serenity drifted helplessly, its environmental controls failing and dropping the interior temperature to uncomfortable lows, a massive shadow fell over the observation deck. It wasn't an asteroid or a passing comet. A blocky, heavily armored, primitive vessel constructed of crude, unpainted metals had positioned itself directly above their damaged hull. Unlike the elegant, gravity-defying ships of the core worlds, this industrial machine was propelled by controlled, highly volatile chemical explosions that left a trail of dark residue across the pristine vacuum of space. It looked like a weaponized boulder, unpolished and built purely for survival. A heavy, metallic thud echoed through the structural beams of the liner as the unknown ship extended a mechanical tether, latching directly onto their primary docking bay with a violent, jarring force. The terrified passengers huddled together in the central corridors, their colorful carapaces fading to dull, anxious tones as they braced for immediate execution, resource plundering, or galactic enslavement at the hands of the oncoming Death World raid party. The pneumatic seals of the primary docking bay hissed loudly, releasing a cloud of dense, pressurized gas into the atmospheric transition chamber. Out stepped a squad of towering figures clad in thick, terrifying industrial environmental suits that made them look like armored mechanical beasts. They moved with a heavy, deliberate gait that spoke of evolving under a crushing gravitational pull, their steps vibrating through the deck plates. The leader stepped forward, his face completely hidden behind a dark, reflective visor that mirrored the flashing emergency lights of the alien ship. When he spoke, the alien translator software struggled immensely with the local dialect, rendering his deep, booming voice into an aggressive, demanding syntax that echoed through the comms. "Show me the life support schematics and take us to your primary galley immediately." Captain Vale froze, his sensory stalks flattening against his head. The humans weren't wasting any time. They were immediately demanding control of the ship's vital systems and the food storage, exactly like the ruthless apex predators described in the ancient galactic legends. Captain Vale, entirely convinced that the humans were assessing how to harvest their ship's remaining energy and isolate the passengers, complied without a single word of resistance. The heavy-footed boarding party systematically guided the fragile alien passengers out of their pristine luxury cabins, ushering them down the corridors with firm, sweeping gestures. They shuttled the terrified crowd across the freezing void via enclosed, pressurized walkway, moving them into a temporary orbital station anchored near the planet's moon. The station was loud, vibrating constantly with the deep roar of unshielded mechanical generators, and filled with the overwhelming, harsh scent of ozone and charred organic matter. To the elite passengers, who were used to the silent, scentless luxury of the core worlds, this place felt less like a sanctuary and more like a high-security processing facility where they would be catalogued and processed. The walls were bare steel, the lighting was a stark industrial white, and the humans watched them from behind wire mesh balconies, their hidden faces watching every single movement the aliens made. Inside the station's holding area, the humans began distributing survival rations to the weary travelers. The alien VIPs watched in utter horror as a human engineer placed a steaming, dark, chemically complex liquid in front of them in primitive ceramic containers. The ship's portable scanners immediately flagged the substance as an incredibly high concentration of caffeine, roasting byproducts, and volatile acidic compounds, a literal biological weapon that could dissolve the outer lining of a crystalline avian or curdle a gloom's fluid. The primitive translator aggressively outputted the humans' accompanying words as an absolute command. "Drink this down, it'll wake you right up." Simultaneously, deep, rhythmic sonic vibrations began blasting through the wall speakers, shaking the metal floorboards. The aliens assumed this loud, repetitive thumping was a psychological disorientation tactic designed to break their spirits, unaware that the humans had simply put on a standard classic rock playlist to break the tense, awkward silence in the holding bay. The psychological tension inside the industrial room heightened when the humans began walking through the crowd holding strange, handheld scanning devices. They cast bright green lasers over the huddled, trembling aliens, checking them from top to bottom. To a liquid-based gloom, whose semi-permeable body was entirely composed of delicate, pressurized fluids, the laser felt like a targeting grid for a disintegration beam or a molecular harvesting tool. Every time a human looked at the telemetry data on their dataps, they made strange, bare-toothed expressions, curling their lips backward in a way that the Galactic Codex universally recognized as a display of extreme predatory aggression. The aliens remained entirely paralyzed, holding their breath and compressing their bodies into the smallest possible shapes, certain that they were being evaluated, measured, and weighed for long-term consumption or resource extraction by these silent, grinning Death Worlders. Suddenly, the station's automated alarms began to chime in a rapid, rhythmic pattern. A massive, high-energy solar flare had detached from the volatile local sun and was currently cutting a direct path through the sector, bringing a wave of intense radiation and electromagnetic interference. Captain Vale checked his personal datapad, his heart sinking into his lower chest cavity as he realized the human station's external shielding was completely unrefined and mechanical compared to the elegant magnetic fields of their lost luxury liner. With their own ship's generators completely dead and detached, the aliens were entirely trapped in a steel box, left at the absolute mercy of both the brutal, unforgiving cosmos and their terrifying, silent captors. The lights inside the station flickered violently, the air ventilation slowed to a low whine, and the ambient temperature began to rise as the outer hull absorbed the first waves of cosmic heat, signaling the approach of the stellar storm. Instead of rushing to the escape pods, panicking, or turning on each other as any civilized species would do during a solar event, the humans reacted in a way that defied all galactic logic. They began to laugh loudly, striking one another on the upper appendages with heavy blows before moving into a state of perfect, intense synchronization. Through the reinforced industrial viewport, the aliens watched in absolute disbelief as human engineers willingly bypassed automated safety protocols, sprinting directly into high radiation zones near the outer hull. They worked in teams, using raw, physical brute force to manually crank down massive, pneumatic blast doors using nothing but heavy iron tools and their own muscles. They were sweating profusely, bleeding from minor scrapes, and remarkably, still projecting those terrifying, bare-toothed grins as if they were enjoying the life-threatening exertion. It became clear to Vale that these creatures did not fear the Death World environment. They were entirely in their element, fighting the universe with sheer stubbornness. The solar flare passed, the heavily reinforced steel station absorbing the immense impact seamlessly thanks to the manual lockdown. The heavy blast doors hissed open, and the lead human stepped back into the bunker, removing his heavy helmet to reveal a tired, sweat-streaked, but relaxed face. He carried a massive, steaming tray filled with perfectly prepared proteins and temperature-regulated synthetic nutrient blocks. Suddenly, a loud chime echoed from the aliens' handheld devices as the translator software finally completed an extensive local data patch, correcting the aggressive syntax errors from before. The human's voice came through the speakers, clear, warm, and incredibly gentle. "All right, folks, the storm has passed and your ship's backup drive is completely repaired. Sorry about the scare and the noise. We threw some steaks on the grill, and the non-toxic hydration blocks are right here on the left. Welcome to Earth space." Captain Vale sat back, completely stunned as he realized that industrial torture was just hyper-protective, rugged hospitality. He immediately opened his logbook to update the Galactic Codex entry for Sector 7G. Earth is undoubtedly a Level 10 death world, but if you are ever stranded there, do not run. They will risk their lives just to ensure you have a comfortable seat and a hot meal.